If it turns out to have been somebody with a leftist ideology who wanted to shut up Charlie Kirk, would you condemn that?
I won't condemn anything until the president of the United States can go on air and say, all of us need to calm down.
So you won't condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk until Donald Trump says something.
I'm a YouTuber. Leftists and Democrats have been condemning and turning down the temperature, condemning violence, turning down the temperature for a decade. Donald Trump can't go on TV and say, all of us need to calm down.
Why do you think
your behavior contingent on Donald Trump?
Insane right now.
Why do you think? No, let me ask a question.
On Donald Trump?
Let me ask a question.
Because he's the president of the United States of America and the leader of the opposing
Destiny.
You have a huge audience of young men who listen to everything you have to say. So when it doesn't matter. You have a huge audience. And because of the fact that you have a huge audience, you have a responsibility to not turn. No, it hasn't. It hasn't been broken. I actually care about the country and want to bring people together. You do the opposite. You represent the worst of us, Destiny.
So ever since Charlie Kirk's passing, there has been a rampant political debate on the left as to whether or not basic human decency, or as they call it, empathy and compassion, are actually acceptable values for a leftist to hold. In other words, is it okay for a leftist to have normal human emotions or even demonstrate that they have a soul at all whatsoever? It turns out this question is a lot more controversial than you may think. As a matter of fact, it is literally a 50-50 split. Keep in mind, every time I've been saying that the left is in support and celebrating the Charlie Kirk assassination, I don't literally mean all leftists. I only mean 50% of them. Only 1 out of 2 in this country. A statistically high enough number for them to show it's likely some of your coworkers, your neighbors, maybe even your friends, they're all around you. This is a widespread belief, hence why the amount of online chatter you're seeing is resulting in the number of online firings and other things you've seen, because again, this is extremely a mainstream idea on the left. As a matter of fact, you could even make the case the opposite position might be at least 49% minority here very soon. And keep in mind, that 50-50 number is not something that we arbitrarily made up. This is derived from recent polling that shows anywhere between 48 to 55% of liberal voters in this country believe that assassinations and other form of political violence against the opponents they disagree with is indeed acceptable. And I think the online civil war is summed up so much by this screenshot right here, in which Cenk Uygur, who is a progressive founder of the Young Turks, but he does enjoy actually having civil debate, and he's been willing to show up and talk to Charlie and stuff before, had a very reasonable response today that Charlie died. He said, Charlie died. This is not the way. I didn't just know him from our interviews and debates, but I met his wonderful wife. This is beyond heartbreaking. Violence is so stupid. He was a real person, a human being who just died in front of our eyes. How tragic. Now, of course, admitting that a human being is actually a human being, first of all, is an unacceptable stance to have on the left, right? It's unacceptable to express basic truths. Violence is stupid, which objectively, it is counterproductive even if you have certain moral views on it, right? All the left did here was galvanize the right against them. But of course, you're dealing with a bunch of people who further really lack the IQ or the brain cells, the understanding, whatever it is, to comprehend second and third hand consequences of certain actions. Hence why, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's Luigi Mangione, they're just like, oh, this is so amazing, not thinking for one single second what they did. And by the way, that further is the same case with the very people assaulting those at Charlie Kirk memorials and wondering why they got arrested, right? That there are real consequences in the real world. But of course, that's why these comments have warranted responses like this, saying, and I quote, Charlie hated empathy and I like karma. Pour a beer out over his nakasi if you feel so bad, and many such leftist reactions like this. Well, in today's video, I want to break down some of the insanity that we've seen. I want to give genuine credit to the prominent left-wing commentators who have not played into the, hey, violence and terrorism and cold-blooded murder are good outrage. I mean, I know it's pretty basic, but clearly given it's 50% of the left, the chances are they are going up against some heavy opposition. And we have cases, for instance, of left-wing influencers having to make borderline apology videos for actually showing basic compassion for a family that lost their father and husband just last week. I also want to show you a debate that took place earlier today between Destiny, who is a highly unhinged and deranged liberal YouTuber, and Anna Kasparian of TYT, someone I've actually debated before, who does have some left-wing views, some not, some more in the center, I guess, nowadays, but actually is just like a normal person who said, no, murder is not okay, and you'll see here that gets pretty heated as well. And again, this is the political left, right? This is the time for choosing type of moment. You know, in 2016 for the right, it was, do we go the Ted Cruz Tea Party route or the Jeb Bush neoconservatism or like MAGA populism, right? Different ideologies. Even on the left back then, do we take the Hillary Clinton mainstream neoliberal route or the Bernie Sanders progressive democratic socialist route? Well, now the time for choosing fork in the road for the left is literally just, do we support terrorism or do we not? Is murder good or is it bad? Do we support just killing people? Or do we like try to engage in any real political system? That's what we're dealing with. And I want to tell you all about it. So guys, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, if you enjoy our coverage, make sure you're subscribed to the channel down below. We appreciate the support, and also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of our coverage here. And that said, I want to start with an example that's a couple days old, but it really just to sum up this story where Dean Withers, who is a pretty prominent Gen Z liberal YouTuber. This guy actually was making a living for a very long time, showing up to Charlie Kirk events and basically like trolling him, and then claiming when Charlie didn't necessarily get to his question, hey, you're censoring me, all this stuff. But Dean, because apparently he does have like a human being inside of there, shed real tears on stream the moment that he found out Charlie died. And needless to say, it's been pretty controversial on the left, actually, and among his own fan base. How could Dean possibly be sad that a father of two and a husband was killed in cold blood in front of the entire world? But check it out. This was Dean's actual reaction. And again, credit to him for being a human being, I guess.
His wife and children were in attendance, dude. Imagine... You know, imagine being a 12-year-old, you know, watching your dad fucking die. Nobody deserves that. Not even Charlie Kirk.
Well, you know what that is on display? That's called humanity. Although maybe humanity you could say is the bad and goodness is the good, so we'll say that's goodness on display, right? Decency, whatever you want to call it. But the reaction to this from his own fan base, ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you, was so negative and so loud and so protesting in response. It turns out he had to make an entire 2-minute video. And it's not formally an apology video, but it's kind of similar to that structure, right? Basically having to rationalize and justify and explain to his own audience as to why he was sad that someone who is a father and a husband got murdered in cold blood. Like, he actually had to explain himself. And if the polls are not enough for you to realize how rampant this is, let that be the ultimate symbol of it, right? Someone has to actually, who has a prominent audience on the left, get in front of a camera and defend themselves for 2 minutes as to why showing basic human decency was okay for him to do. Like, he had to rationalize that to people.
In the last 24 hours or so, I've received a lot of public scrutiny and backlash in response to the fact that yesterday, after Charlie Kirk died, I cried, and then the video of me crying was blasted all over the internet. So first and foremost, I am distraught because of what happened to Kirk. I think that gun violence is always wrong, and I also think that violence leads to more violence. In fact, today we've already had 3 HBCUs go into lockdown because of retaliatory threats in response to what happened.
Oh, by the way, you know that's an understanding of second and third consequences. So, you know, Dean I've had my issues with you before, but maybe you're too smart for the people who watch you. I guess that you have more complex and nuanced ability to understand events that happen in the world than these people. So
into Kirk. And that's my position. That's how I feel. But I'm going to be honest, that on its own isn't what invoked the extreme and raw emotional reaction of tears that you guys saw that I'm now being criticized so heavily for. There's a handful of things that invoke that reaction of mine, and here they are. The first thing that invoked that reaction out of me was watching the up-close video of what had happened to him, and how extremely violent it was, while then also learning that his wife and 3-year-old daughter were watching from the crowd. When this occurred, I momentarily placed myself in the shoes of his wife or 3-year-old daughter, and how they had to watch that, and yes, that made me extremely emotional. The second reason why I cried is because my best friend Parker was standing less than 30 feet away from him when it happened in person. In fact, he was next in line to debate Charlie Kirk. And not only the fact that he had to witness this, but then also then turned around and FaceTime me while he was running away and screaming, not knowing if this might be a mass casualty event where he or anybody else there would be next, was very traumatic for me and on set a lot of emotions. The third reason why I cried is because Charlie Kirk is somebody that I've personally interacted with in real life. Now, the reason why I've personally interacted with him is because I disagreed with nearly every single thing he believed in, and I personally let him know. But I'm not good with gore, and seeing those things happen to somebody that I've personally interacted with in real life was really hard on me psychologically. It's also worth adding on that my tears weren't me telling you how you should feel, but rather you happening to see me and how I felt, because of everything I've just described in this video, all going through my head at the exact same time in the moment of.
Yeah, so I can simplify Dean's video very easily. It was shocking to my natural human emotions and instincts to watch somebody die, and I understand why this is a bad thing because of first, second, and third order consequences. And that's a video that a prominent left-winger actually had to make for his own audience in front of the entire world. Again, this is what we're dealing with. And for the very crowd out there who still can't understand these second and third order consequences, let me further tell you that the fact that your 50% is acting like this, I guarantee you is further turning a lot of the other 50% to say, wait, what is wrong with these people? What is wrong with us? Okay? When we say millions of Charlie Kirks were born the day he died, it's not just a matter of people who were conservative became super passionate about it. Let me tell you, it's a gradual process. But I guarantee you as well, and this is all over TikTok, you see this as well, but many of the people who were maybe center of left, moderate, unpolitical, but just saw the way you guys acted on top of what happened, again, second and third order consequences that you guys just don't understand. I don't know what it is. It would further honestly explain a lot of the behavior of the left, why very often you see so many just like mentally ill, deranged people on these campuses get violent, including this guy, by the way, but even others that you've seen, besides Tyler Robinson, where they're just, oh, let me just start assaulting people. Let's be like Antifa. Let's do this, you know? Many such cases. But anyways, I want to show you yet another example of this here today out of the exchange between Destiny and Anna Kasparian. Now, it's worth noting that this is not new behavior from Destiny. He said very similar things about a year ago in response to the Trump assassination. He actually went so far as to say that he would laugh at anyone who got shot or killed because they went to a Trump rally, and said that would even apply to his own parents because apparently that's all in the name of anti-fascism or something like that. Just keep in mind, this is the very deranged individual we are dealing with here. And that said, take a listen here to his justification as to why he's, of course, reacting the way he is.
You've been quite active on social media since Charlie Kirk's death. When Erica Kirk posted Charlie's coffin, you responded, she tagged him, brackets, crying face emojis. In response to Alina Haber's tweet ordering people to fly their flags a half-mast in memory of Charlie, you posted on X buying flags and poles just to fly them fully erect. And you then posted yesterday ending every conservative debate call out I'd do in 2026 with don't dodge, bro. That's not what Charlie would have wanted. I mean, do you think that your response to the cold-blooded murder of Charlie Kirk has been appropriate?
By the way, as you read those tweets, for those of you who just don't know who Destiny is, I want you to understand this. We're not talking about some shock jock comedian or just purely bad taste jokes. This guy is an actual political commentator, and as you'll see, his genuine stances reflect exactly this type of stuff. He said openly, like, he said it actually in response to Corey Comparator, the guy who was killed at the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, that he was laughing at it and he's mocking it because he essentially said that's what you deserve for going to a Trump rally and supporting a so-called fascist or whatever, right? And they even asked him last year, actually, so your own parents, according to you, are, Republican or Trump supporters. What would you say if that happened to them? And he further said, same answer, essentially. So this is, just keep in mind, the sick, ill individual we are dealing with. This guy has millions of subscribers. He has a massive audience on the left. That audience has gone nowhere in response to the comments either this year or on July 13th last year. So let that just tell you a lot about the characters we're dealing with.
Yes. I think that the only way this country moves forward into a better world is when conservatives can finally realize that they need to turn the temperature down on their side. We are 10 years into whatever this Trump madness is, and there is not a single mainstream conservative that will call for a lowering of the temperature on their side. I think that liberals need to wake up and finally realize that if they're not willing to do it, it will never come down. If you wanted Charlie Kirk to be alive, Donald Trump shouldn't have been president for the second term. Every time he's in office, this happens. People joked about when Biden came in, it was so boring, nothing was going on. 7 out of 10 of the largest protests in American history have happened under Donald Trump. All of the recent political violence that's happened in this country over the past 20 years.
Okay, so let's get this straight. It is, first of all, apparently our job to turn down the temperature. After one of them just killed one of us, it's our fault, it's our problem. Okay, first and foremost, we said the night that it happened, do not retaliate. Do not be pushed into any of that stuff. It's not the answer. It's wrong. It's not productive either. Okay, you do not want to be in the position the left is right now because they look crazy to Americans in the middle. They have set themselves back a generation politically in this act. They've galvanized the right, et cetera, and it's wrong, obviously. But, the argument he is making here is it's Donald Trump's fault this has happened, guys, actually, right? It is, as a leftist, the leftists are basically saying it is your fault, it is our fault that we make them so mad that they commit unprovoked violence against us, right? Imagine that. So, the analogy I might make to this is, say you're in a pickup basketball game at the park with someone, like a friend of yours or something, and you're just destroying them because you're way better than basketball, right? And eventually, they just start throwing hands, they just start kicking you to the ground, beating the crap out of you for no reason other than they're losing. And the justification is, well, you made me mad because you beat me in this game, so I ended the game which the game in this case is politics. I ended the game and just started throwing fists at you. Would that be an acceptable response? Would this be an acceptable response, frankly, in any other part of society? Your boss made you mad, so literally you just went and killed him. Can you blame the boss for that? Or is it like, no, you have an obligation to not commit unprovoked, non-self-defense style acts of violence? Is this not a very basic rule, by the way, that we tell children? I remember my dad told me when I was very young, if you're on the schoolyard or something, always defend yourself, but never throw the first punch, right? That's not okay. Like, I don't know, but apparently what we're seeing here is that many leftists out there just never learned very important life lessons as children. Hence why, by the way, they act right now like overgrown children. That's essentially what they are, right? They have the mindset of toddlers in adults' bodies. Hence why they cannot understand things like, again, second and third order consequences or the pretenses or justifications for violence or not for violence or whatever, right? Why, they equate things with political speech like violence, because mentality of children here we're dealing with. And that's exactly what you just heard from this sick and deranged individual. But let's hear more of his excuse making.
Here's the majority of it, the overwhelming majority of it. Everybody gets mad because they keep asking Grok about it. Has been conservative.
Who shot Charlie Kirk?
A guy from Utah who was raised in a Christian family, who was a 22-year-old white dude.
Described.
He wasn't
Destiny.
trans. He didn't have a trans girlfriend. He didn't have any trans influences. He didn't have any trans bullets. Yeah, I'm sorry. You guys were wrong on all of that.
To be clear, the governor of Utah.
Okay. You are a white male, Destiny. You were raised in a conservative family by your own admission. And you're still a leftist. You live in a red state, by the way. You live in Florida, but you're still a leftist. The lack of self-awareness here is crazy. You've heard this a lot, right? How could he be a leftist if he comes from a conservative family in a red state? And he's white. Every white person in the world is actually right-wing. Says the white guy from a conservative family who lives in a red state named Destiny. You can't even make that up. It's totally ridiculous.
Spencer Cox has made it clear that their investigation has now established that he had been radicalized by a leftist ideology, which drove him to do this.
I'm sorry, excuse me, when?
Yesterday, he said that.
No. When was he radicalized? In the 6 months that he did remote college? Not
I don't know when he was radicalized, but I do know.
What you just said
I do know the very reasonable sounding
true.
governor of Utah has made it
it's
clear
not true.
that the
he hasn't made it
you may
clear.
not want
he
to
said
hear
there's
this.
An ongoing investigation.
You may not want to hear it,
hear
Destiny. But the reality is, the investigators, according to the governor of Utah, have established that he was radicalized to a leftist ideology that drove him to murder Charlie Kirk. Now, let me just ask you.
That's just not true.
Let me just
There's
ask
no
you.
way to deal with it.
Okay,
You're living in a
accusing the
delusional
governor
fantasy.
of lying.
Yeah.
That's your prerogative. But
sure.
If it turns out to have been somebody with a leftist ideology who wanted to shut up Charlie Kirk, would you condemn that?
I won't condemn anything until the president of the United
States. So no. So why did we even just have this whole debate as to whether or not he was leftist or not, which, by the way, every single piece of forensic evidence we've seen thus far, such as what was written on the bullets, what other people said about him, friends, family, about his politics, the roommate, many other things, every single thing we've seen so far points toward left-wing affiliations. Destiny denies that. He's taking the mainstream argument on the left of, well, again, Christian family must mean right-wing or something. But then after that entire conversation, okay, so say it's this undisputed whether or not he was leftist. Would you condemn it? The answer is no. The answer is no. Wow.
I won't condemn anything until the president of the United States can go on air and say, all of us need to calm down.
So you won't condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk until Donald Trump says something.
I'm a YouTuber. Leftists and Democrats have been condemning and turning down the temperature, condemning violence, turning down the temperature for a decade. Donald Trump can't go on TV and say, all of us need to calm down.
Right.
Can you tell me why he cannot?
Why would you expect anybody, Destiny?
You can't answer that. Can you answer that question? Why can't Trump go on TV and say,
question?
All of us should be less violent?
Why do you think
Trump say that?
Why do you think
your behavior contingent on Donald Trump?
Insane right now.
Why do you think? No,
let me ask a question.
On Donald Trump.
Let me ask a question.
Because he's the president of the United States of America and the leader of the opposing political party.
Destiny.
You have a huge audience of young men who listen to everything you have to say. So when it doesn't matter. You have a huge audience, and because of the fact that you have a huge audience, you have a responsibility to not turn. No, it hasn't. It hasn't been broken. I actually care about the country and want to bring people together. You do the opposite. You represent the worst of us, Destiny.
No, Anna's completely right. And props to her for saying that. It's true. Why is your brain, Destiny, controlled by Donald Trump? And Destiny uses the excuse, oh, he's the president. He has a bigger audience or platform. More young men follow Trump than follow Destiny. Okay, that may all be true. But Donald Trump does not command an audience of left-wingers. Newsflash. You're not going to listen to what he says. You know who do listen to what you say as leftists? You, Destiny. Your audience and Donald Trump's audience, though it may be mostly young men, I guess, on both sides, are not the same batch of young men. And when the overwhelming evidence is pointing towards the fact that, I don't know if he was a fan of yours personally or not, but sort of your batch of young men, the type of young men that would follow you, appears to be what gave birth to this shooter, not Donald Trump's overall following base or batch of young men, then the onus is actually on you to stand up and condemn it or say something if you don't want those things to happen. But of course, the answer is very simple. Destiny cheers political violence. He refuses to condemn it. He is a mainstream figure, by the way, on the online left. He's not the only one speaking like this. And Anna Kasparian, frankly, at some points almost feels like the minority of leftists in this country. But as we've seen, polls say it's 50-50. We're going to take that number. But here's more of the exchange. As a leftist who has like normal human thoughts and emotions, that here being Anna, has to try to tell Destiny that he's insane, which Destiny appears not to even understand. But let's go.
I don't understand you, Destiny. You have so much hatred in your heart, and at the same time, you judge others.
If you're going to
hateful.
weaponize somebody's grief against the other party, well, then of course people have a right to fight back against it. I think that she has every right to grieve in whatever way she wants, but when that grief is going to be weaponized to do recruitment, political recruitment, and further radicalization of the other side, then of course you not only have the ability to mock it, I think you have the obligation to mock it. It's insane.
Let me understand your argument. So since others are using her grief to politically recruit, you think that it's okay to mock her specifically?
Since others are using her grief,
sense?
she's the one who gave a 17-minute speech on TV where she talked about good versus evil. She's the one showing up in
Destiny,
TPUSA ads to 1 or 2 days after.
If someone assassinated my husband, I would not be able to have the level of composure she had during that speech. I would be out for blood. I understand why she's angry and why she said the things that she said. Okay, you need to understand what being a human is, what it's like to actually lose someone that you love, that you chose to spend your life with, that you chose to raise children with, a person who was violently and viciously assassinated like that. This is why I've moved away
and when
from
something
identifying as
you got bullied online. It's so funny. It's so funny that you just said that you don't think about how other people act to define your behavior. Your entire political ideology now is somehow defined by the people that were mean to you on Twitter.
No,
if somebody cares about somebody who's grieving,
I understood
then you tell that
what
person,
the flaws
you
on
tell
the
that
left
person,
happen
hey,
to be.
maybe
The
you should
weakness in their
step back
arguments.
for a couple of weeks.
No, it's
Maybe
not
you should
about
take
the
some
way
time
I
to
get
grieve.
treated.
You don't
I
say,
get
hey,
treated
let's
like
throw a
crap from
camera in
both
front
sides
of
of
you
the
and have
political
you do
aisle.
mass recruitment for our political party while everyone over here is calling for civil war. It's unhinged. When you've got people like Matt Walsh in the Daily Wire, the
we're
president
talking
of the
to a
United States
guy
calling
who
for
said
civil
he'd be
war.
okay with his own parents getting killed if they went to that Trump rally where that assassination attempt
and we're talking to a woman who went on and did the whole conservative media outlet with Tucker Carlson and Glenn Beck.
Listen to Destiny's last argument, by the way. He actually said this. So he's equating Anna Kasparian getting interviewed by Tucker Carlson with the fact that he said it would be okay for his own parents to get killed for supporting Trump. That's what he's trying to equate the two things. He's basically saying, oh, well, you're just as bad as me because you talked to Tucker Carlson. I'll let the comment section decide that. You know, what is worse? Being okay with the death of your own parents or talking to Tucker Carlson? But of course, the central kind of theme of that segment was in reaction to a lot of left-wingers out there who have been criticizing Erica Kirk, that is the widow of Charlie Kirk, over the fact that she basically called out the forces of evil that killed her husband and, you know, spoke about how her husband's legacy and ultimately fight will carry on. And many of the leftists were saying, okay, no empathy for her either. Screw her. How could she say such a thing? She's just as bad as him, all this stuff. And they basically were really mad that she called out forces of evil after an evil person just murdered her own husband. And Anna brings up a very simple point. Just 2 days before, someone murdered her husband. And the left is shocked. They're appalled. They don't understand why a widow at that moment in time, after it was a murder, not just a tragic death, would be so aggrieved, would be so angry. And as Anna points out to Destiny, the reason they don't understand the very normal human reaction, which, by the way, I thought Erica Kirk was remarkably composed for that moment, is because they don't actually know love. That's the truth. These leftists that are saying these, how could Erica Kirk say that? Because they don't feel love. They don't know what that's like. They don't feel, I don't know, human emotions in general. They're just deeply sick and lost people. I mean, I guess we're all kind of lost in this world, but them exceptionally lost. I don't know what to say about it. And I guess pray for them. I don't know, but just understand, like, that is the rampant, I don't know what to say, mental illness crisis in this country, actually. You know, not only that these people have very violent tendencies and deranged ideas in their head, but that is also a moral and mental and on many levels, it's a sickness. It's a sickness inside here. That the very people who say slogans like, we believe in empathy, or just be kind, or crap like this, can't even understand the very basic empathy of a widow, right? It should be one of the easiest things to understand. Why would a widow feel the way she does? Why would she be in grief? You know? It's nothing complicated. It's very basic. Oh, because this XYZ event happened. But they can't comprehend that. I don't know what else to say beyond that, you know? But I guess here's hoping that, you know, for the good of the country, leftists like Anna prevail over leftists like Destiny, if you still want to call Anna a leftist. But I don't know. I think you look at the reactions, you see the way people are talking on that side. I don't know if that's going to be the case, sadly. But yeah. It's a spiritually sick country, I guess we have. But what can we do? Besides try to fix it, right? But anyways, that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.